Hey, what's up, guys? Josh here. Welcome to the R-Rated Show. Just wanted to drop a quick review for a movie that is near and dear to my heart, and that is George Lucas's 1973 sleeper hit, American Graffiti. Now, this was George Lucas's second movie that he made right before he made Star Wars and after he made THX 1138. Now, as the story goes, Francis Ford Coppola, who was George Lucas's close friend and mentor, George had asked Coppola what he should make for his next movie, and Francis Ford Coppola said, make something warm and fuzzy, because I think he wanted him to challenge himself, and because if you look at THX 1138, that's a pretty cold and static sort of movie. Stylistically. So he said, make something warm and fuzzy. So George, thought about it, and he used I think he said he used what little money he made off of THX 1138 to take a long trip through Europe, and essentially he blew through all his money doing that. So he came up with the idea for American Graffiti. Now, American Graffiti is about change, essentially, but the plot is about the early 60s in a sort of rural little city and town in California. And it's about a group of high school friends graduating, and it's about one night in this little town where they partake in their weekend ritual, which, is the last of many, I'm sure. And they're all close friends, and it's sort of their last night together because some of the central characters are going off to college, and things will be changing forever. And it's also very much about cars and cruisin, and that's just how teenagers related to each other back in the early 60s. But it's also, at its core, it's really about change. It's about this little narrow corridor of time that George Lucas personally experienced in his life, about the change from the post-World War II era, sort of innocent teeny bopper rock and roll era, changing over to the more free love and the 1960s hippie culture that took place, that sort of grew out of San Francisco and all across the United States. And that was a huge change for American culture, not only mainstream culture, but counterculture, and the way that the youth of America perceived the world and saw each other and interacted with each other. So it's about this very narrow space and time that George Lucas personally experienced in his life that was really formidable for him. He says openly that this movie is essentially almost kind of a biopic about his own personal life, things that he experienced. He says that the characters in the movie were essentially him at different phases of his life. Like he started out, at one point the geek, and then he moved into more of the hot rod guy, and sort of experienced these different phases of his life and wrote them into characters. So when he came back from this trip from Europe, and he was trying to figure out, he was trying to craft this script, none of the studios wanted it. He was shopping it around, and it was being rejected, and he really had only had a treatment going for it. So he tried to enlist the help of a couple well-known writers, and they were busy at the time, so he had managed to scrape together about $10,000 to get a script together to develop it, and it was apparently terrible. So he was basically in this position where he had no money at all, and no backing to make his movie, and he was poor, he's broke. He had spent all his THX 1138 money, so he just crafted the script himself. He apparently hates writing scripts, but he wrote this script in 3 weeks, and it was pretty close to the final version, but by that time, 2 years later, he had been able to get these two writers on board to help him punch up the script to make it what it is today. So really fleshing out the characters was key to this movie. Now, this movie's characters aren't really explored through dialogue, but more through the ambience and tone and music and environments and scenarios that they get into, which I really, really enjoy. George Lucas said that he actually crafted the scenes of this movie by listening to, because he picked out all these songs that he thought would be really good for the movie, and then he would listen to them, like actually listen to the songs while writing the script and writing the scenes for the characters. So they're perfectly meshed together, and that's just key for this movie because it's essentially almost a musical in a way, even though there's nobody in the movie singing. The movie, I think George described it as he wanted it to be like a living jukebox, not only visually, but also in the sense that it just connects one song right into the next, right into the next. And so it's just brilliantly, it's a stroke of genius. And of course, the movie for its time was very groundbreaking, and George Lucas is really well known for making groundbreaking films, for being experimental. I think Francis Ford Coppola even said that he actually, after Star Wars came out and was a smash hit, blockbuster, he sort of lamented for the filmmaker he knew before Star Wars, because effectively Star Wars took over George Lucas's life, and he built an empire out of it, and merchandising, and set up all these companies, and you think about what could have been if Star Wars hadn't happened. George Lucas could have made a lot of movies like this, but one can only hope. But this movie was sort of the end of his innocence in a way, and it's just amazing because you could tell that it's a passion piece that is based a very personal part of his life. And George was really into cars and racing and whatnot. I think he said he was actually planning on being a mechanic before he became a filmmaker. So cars were like a really integral part of his life. And he actually had a really bad car accident that put him in the hospital. And then that's when he read Joseph Campbell's The Hero's Journey, which led him to write the Journey of the Wills, the first Star Wars script. So, it's weird how all these things can be serendipitous and link in together. But this is a fantastic movie. It's just really, really good. Now, I have here the it's kind of hard to see because this damn light always blows it out. This is the American Graffiti Special Edition on Blu-ray. I got it on Amazon for like $7 or $8. Really good deal. And this has an excellent video, picture-in-picture video commentary with George Lucas. Now, George always does really great commentaries for his movies. I mean, most of them have always been really informative, and you can tell he really cares about his films. So he talks a lot through the movie, and the picture-in-picture, I'm not too crazy about that, but it is kind of cool to see his face light up when he sees certain scenes and whatnot. You can see he's kind of sitting in his home theater in his, out there in his kingdom in California. But does great commentary for this. It's also got the music of American Graffiti, which outlines all the different songs on the soundtrack. Also worth noting on this Blu-ray is the Making of the American Graffiti documentary, which is about an hour and a half long, and I watched it, the whole thing. It's really good. You really get a lot of really good behind-the-scenes information about how the movie was made from George Lucas himself and from the actors, producers, director of photography, all the people who worked, a lot of people who worked on the film, the casting director and whatnot, and it's very, very good. Also, screen tests, which are really interesting to see. George was really well known for really taking the time to vet his actors in the sense that he cared more about chemistry than he cared about line delivery. So he really cared about how the different actors looked and felt next to each other and how they sort of gelled and how they had chemistry. So the screen tests are really cool. One notable one I can think of is Cindy Williams and Ron Howard had this really great screen test where they're slow dancing in the gymnasium, and you could just see the chemistry right away. It's really, really good. So this is such a steal for under $10. Definitely get it. I love this movie. It's definitely in my top 10, if not in my top 5 all-time favorite movies. And they made this movie for $750,000, and it's, made a lot of money for George Lucas. And really, this was the impetus for him to get Star Wars made. So Yeah, I just love this movie. I watch it multiple times every year. I'm going to do a commentary track for it, and I can't recommend it enough. Another little tidbit about this too, just real quick, is the artwork for the cover is done by the great late Mort Drucker, who just passed away last week, who was a well-known cartoonist for Mad Magazine. And if you ever looked at a Mad Magazine, you saw Mort Drucker artwork. He's just incredible. Narrative comic book artist, but he did the cover for this, and it's classic. You could see it a little bit better in the picture in the corner here, but yeah, that's worth noting. And that's pretty much it. If you want to know more about this movie, pick up the Blu-ray, listen to the commentary, listen to the documentary, and also I'll be dropping a commentary for this real soon, so keep an eye out for that. And that's it, guys. As always, stay awesome, stay R-rated, stay healthy out there. Take care of yourself and stay inside until this terrible thing is over. We'll get through it. But as always, guys, stay awesome, stay R-rated. Cheers. Hey, what's up, everyone? Josh here. Just want to say thanks so much for listening to the show. We really do appreciate it. And if you enjoyed the content, please hit the like button. And go ahead and subscribe and hit the bell for notifications. We'd love to have you on board. Lots of great content coming in 2020. And we just really enjoy the community over here and enjoying pop culture together. So if you get a chance, hit subscribe. Really appreciate it. And until next time, guys, stay awesome, stay R-rated. Cheers.